would love to allow the alums some time to quickly introduce themselves. So please start off by providing your name, pronouns, class year, your major, and current occupation. Do you want me to repeat?
No.
Okay. Mason, he series, class of 2011. Africana Studies and Comparative Literature double major, and right now I am in my requirement era, so I do many things at the same time. I am a graduate student, I'm starting my business, I'm an academic administrator and a freelance writer for an online publication.
Hi everyone. Hi. My name is Shaina. I use she, her pronouns. I studied 2019. I studied anthropology and minored in education, and I am currently a director of communications and strategic advisor at the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs in New York City.
Hi everyone. I really hate microphones. My name is Kureem. I use the pronouns he, him. I'm the class of 2018. I studied sociology. I actually forgot to declare my minors, but if I did, it would be Hispanic studies. What else? I'm a user experience researcher, so that's just jargon where I do qualitative research on tech products, more jargon, I guess. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting us know who you are today and who you were at Hamilton. So I'm going to start off with the first question. So if you don't mind, can you please reiterate what your concentration was at Hamilton and how did your studies prepare you for your career today?
I can start. So I studied sociology. I actually took my first sociology class my sophomore fall. I took American Society, which is pretty similar to Intro to Sociology. And through sociology, I actually discovered my passion for research. So I did a senior thesis. I took a research methods class junior year where I learned about qualitative research and doing in-depth interviews. And I did my thesis on if and how students of color develop a sense of belonging at predominantly white institutions, just based on my experience at Hamilton. So that started my sort of trajectory into research. I did a Watson Fellowship, which I can talk about later, but that was about, thank you. Yeah, I was essentially doing more types of research. So I was going to schools across countries, so Chile, Finland, Germany, South Korea, and Japan, to understand students' pathways to higher education. So I was doing a lot of more qualitative research, ethnographic research, and now as a user experience researcher, I'm doing even more research. So I'm doing a lot of interviews to understand how people use products, how can we improve those products. And yeah, I've been doing that for the past 3 years.
All right. So I studied anthropology while at Hamilton. I think, let me take a step back. So as a daughter of immigrants, right, public service was always integrated in my childhood, growing up in high school. I was always involved in some sort of like volunteer community service, whether it was at my local church or it was really going with my mom to doctor's appointments, being that translator, being like, okay, mommy, this is what you have to do next, right? So I really loved helping people. And when I studied anthropology at Hamilton, for my thesis, I focused on the effects of gentrification in Bushwick, because I'm from Brooklyn, from New York, and I really wanted to study how like systems or sort of the process of gentrification was affecting Latino and Black communities in Brooklyn. So after that, I was sharing this earlier with Ms. Davis. I was applying for jobs for like 6 months. Didn't know that there was like a whole sector of city government jobs out there. And I applied to be a press associate at the Department of Small Business Services. And the campus jobs that I held here at Hamilton, like I was really blowing them up. I was like, yeah, I was doing communications at Hamilton, writing newsletters. Like I was selling that that internship I had at Hamilton, or on-campus job experience I had at Hamilton. And thank God, like, you know, I got accepted at that job position. So I want to say it was partly my major, because anthropology teaches you a different way of thinking. It teaches you sort of like a different set of critical thinking skills that, in my opinion, I wasn't receiving from other classes I was taking. But also the on-campus jobs I held here, and also the internship experiences that I was able to have throughout my 4 years that led me to getting my foot in the door for city government job.
What was the question?
The question was just to reiterate what your major was at Hamilton and how did your studies help you with your current career?
So as an Africana Studies major, I was exposed to Black and the diaspora and the many aspects that come with it from, or not even the many aspects, but the many intersectionalities, which was a word I learned at Hamilton College, was the power of intersectionality. So race and class, race and equality, race and sexuality, race and religion. And while I was immersed in, surrounded by such phenomenal professors in the Africana Studies department, and with the assistance of my experience in comparative literature, I then began to understand the power that I had in my own natural ability with my voice, and how I can translate those skills into giving back to communities of color, to strive for liberation. I know that we're striving for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are cute terms, but Hamilton and my experiences here and being in the real world, I learned that those are cute, but Hamilton taught me the power and the desire for true liberation. So I operate in all silos in a liberated mindset and capacity, and I can thank Miss Breland back there for and Miss Davis for showing me that what can be possible when you allow yourself to not be limited by your identity, but be enhanced and encouraged by it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your responses. So the second question that I have is, what was your first accomplishment after graduating college? It can be from getting your first car to getting into grad school. Just what was your first, like, ooh, adult thing?
I think it was just getting a job. It was just getting a job. My parents did not go to college, right? This was an opportunity that was given to me because of certain circumstances, right? It's not given to everyone, so I knew I was like, okay, I have this opportunity to go to college. I'm gonna do the 4 years, and I'm gonna get a middle class like job, because I want a stable salary, right? Where I can support myself, I can help my family out, and sort of support my family. That was my goal coming to Hamilton. So during those 6 months, it was just a moment where I was like, dang, I just like spent 4 years in college. I don't know if I'm gonna get a job. What am I gonna do? And thankfully I graduated without loans. So that was something I did not have to worry about. Thank God, yeah. So that was like, okay, a weight off of me. But I'm like, what am I supposed to tell my mom after, like, I've been telling her, like, I'm going to college to get a good job. I'm going to college to get a good job. So when that moment finally came, I was like, woo, thank goodness, like, I'm gonna get a job, and I got the job, and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna work my ass off so I can continue to increase my salary, right? And continue to do meaningful work to me. Meaningful work to me was always to help others. And in a press associate job, it could be a bit separated from the community, right? I was in a space where it was a city agency, a government job, right? And I was the only Spanish speaker in a communications team where they all spoke English. So my job was sort of to engage Spanish-speaking business owners, which is a demographic that the team has never engaged. So I was like, okay, you want me to engage Spanish-speaking business owners? I got you. And I started developing relationships with these small business owners who were predominantly Latino, who spoke Spanish. And I the way I developed relationships with them, I'm like, we would love to highlight you in the press to, one, show the services that you're using for city government, so that way you can be an example to other business owners that maybe are not aware of the resources that city government has, but also for the department itself to do outreach to non-English non-English business owners. So I would say, just to keep it short, just getting a job was a major accomplishment after college for me.
Okay, beautiful.
Actually, before the other two respond, I would like to ask a follow-up question to you. I'm someone who struggles with choosing a major that I feel like would do right by, because I'm also an immigrant, my mothers are also an immigrant, so I worry that the major that I choose isn't going to get me to that higher job that I always promised my mother to do. So do you think, like, how did you like manage those emotions of like choosing a major that made you happy, but also like, you knew would satisfy like the goal that you had? And if you guys also have responses to that, well, you can answer that too.
Yeah, that's so real, because I remember a vivid conversation I had with my mom. She's like, "You're gonna become a lawyer, right?" Because that is that is, you know, we see it in the media, we see it in movies. Like, becoming a lawyer typically means that you have a high-paying job, right? And I'm a very realistic person. I took one, what was it, like world politics class? Did not do good. it doesn't correlate, but I was like, dang, I don't like this. I don't like learning about world politics. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be an econ major. I took more calculus class. I was like, oh, those are my worst grades on my transcript. So I was like, I have to do a major that, one, I'm interested in, one that's going to yield me a high GPA, because that's ultimately what's going to show up on my resume. That's the strategy I took, right? And in terms of, I don't know, it was just like, I think it was the hunger to get a job that I remember in one job interview, I was trying to relate, anthropology, like, you need a communications professional with a background in anthropology, because we just think of the world differently, and we do this, and we do that, and I think I was able to convince the person that was interviewing me, like, yeah, like, we do need a person. Ultimately, what I'm trying to tell you is, I know that it's not a burden, it's sort of a pressure. You have to study what you're going to be interested in. Anthropology has nothing to do with communication. I mean, in some ways, but like, it did not prepare me for a communications job. A lot of the preparation happened while on the job, like how to write a press release, how to write a media advisor, all of that, the technical skills, right? But I think you should study what you're interested in while at Hamilton. One, it's gonna make your experience a lot better. You're not gonna be forced to study something that you're not interested in. You're perhaps getting lower grades on. But at the end of the day, I do feel that Hamilton students do figure it out when they're in the job interview process. And it also matters the extracurricular activities that you're involved in, the clubs, the internship experiences. That will lead you to making sure that your resume, the experience that you're selling to the person that is interviewing you, that will stand out.
Would you like me to reiterate the question?
No, I think I remember this time. Because it was kind of a loaded question. Because I'm like, what was I most proud of since I graduated? Well, what was my first huge accomplishment? I graduated in 2011, and I didn't feel my first accomplishment until about 2013 or 2014. And actually, it was the last time I was specifically in this room. So I had an opportunity when I first moved to Boston, Massachusetts, to coordinate the Hamilton overnight for citizen schools. And typically, as you guys seen, when high schoolers come here for the college tours, they go to the science center, they do a science-esque thing, and that's pretty much it. But I valued and honored my path and my story. So with the help of Miss Breland and Miss Davis, they helped me coordinate the most successful and immersive college experience that these Boston youth had ever had. So essentially, I was responsible for busing 80 Boston middle schoolers here to meet with 20 Utica young scholars, where they went around in groups of 5. Some went to Capoeira, some went to Spanish class where they spoke in Spanish, some went to philosophy with Professor Franklin, some met Professor Westmass. I had the seniors going to the Writing Center. Miss Breland and you all helped me get the students $5 Opus gift cards so they can go to class with their tea. They all said, right, I mean, and their huge oatmeal cookie. The school helped me open the swimming pool so the students could have a pool party. And then they sat and had dinner in Commons with the students. So some of them sat with the basketball team, some sat with opportunity students, but I was just like, I want these students to know what the world can be if you receive it. And with the help and the wisdom that I got from home with my mom, and with the support that I got from opportunities programs, I wanted to show these middle schoolers what opportunity looks like and what opportunity can be when you step outside of yourself. So that by that point after Hamilton, it took a few years, but the fact, and we had a nor'easter. So we planned it and we were snowed out, and then I had to plan it again for later in the semester. And as we all know, colleges just don't stop for people. Like the syllabus will keep going. So I then had to find a whole new batch of professors to work with to invite 5 students. And we had about 80 kids that day, but only 5 were going to these respective classes. So they can literally have a day at Hamilton College. After that, they had dinner where, those who identified as male met with the brothers, and those who identified as female met with the women of color at Hamilton, and they just had honest conversation. And for me, my mom was here. We started in this room and ended at the annex, but to see the generations of just what inspiration can look like is something I will always cherish.
I'd say my first big accomplishment was the Watson Fellowship. So if you don't know much about the Watson Fellowship, it's a year of purposeful exploration where you come up with a self-designed project that you pursue independently. So the Watson Foundation gives you a stipend. I believe now it's like $40,000. I think back then, like 6 years ago, it was $30,000. And essentially, I designed this project about exploring the role of cultural capital in access to higher education. So essentially, I come to Hamilton as a first-generation student, coming in through OP and trying to navigate my way here, understanding that there are financial barriers to college. I was more interested in what are those less tangible but very real barriers to college. So I remember I'd been getting these emails forever from Ginny, honestly, since maybe my sophomore or junior year about, hey, there's this Watson Fellowship. I kind of ignored it. I was like, I don't really know. I don't want to think about what I'm doing after college when I'm still in college. I don't know if that's the best idea, especially approaching senior year. But I think it was the weekend before it was due, I decided, shit, I think I'm going to apply for this. So I kind of, walked around, or I came up with this half-baked idea, spoke with my professor. I remember speaking to Miss Breland. I would just tell random professors that I kind of knew, and as I had these conversations, they were helping me flesh out this idea. And I ended up applying for it, and then so how it works is there's an internal round where a bunch of Hamilton seniors apply for it. There's a committee that selects 4 people that they put forward to the Watson Foundation. And the Watson Foundation has 40 plus partner schools, so it's, I guess, 160-ish students who apply for it. And that year, all of Hamilton students, all 4 students got the Watson. So thank you, Jenny, so much for all your help. But why I say it's my biggest accomplishment is because right after graduating in May, I think July 1st, I flew out to Chile. I'd never been there before. I didn't know anyone. And part of the Watson is they give you the stipend, but there's no structure otherwise. It's up to you to pursue this project, to build your community, to find your way. So I was cold calling, cold emailing schools, meeting people on the streets, trying to understand their stories. They'd say, hey, I know a teacher, here's a school you can visit. I'd sit in classrooms, then I'd meet another person who'd invite me to their classroom. I'd just book a flight to a country with no accommodation and kind of just figure it out from there. And I know that sounds very scary, and it was very scary. But I think I built this sort of resourcefulness and this resilience of kind of really creating this project from what was just on a piece of paper to actually doing it in real life and walking the streets of Tokyo and, you know, spending 2 months in Seoul. And I lived in Finland for 3 months, and wow, it sucked, but yeah, like I made it through. And for me, it's an accomplishment to have done that at 21 to 22 and going from the structure of Hamilton to really figuring like every single detail out of my day-to-day. And yeah, it's definitely, I think, influenced, like it's still something that drives my spirit in whatever I do. So yeah, I'd say the Watson is definitely my biggest post-college. And yeah, life gets better. I've done more things since, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. So for the next question, so what anxieties did you have in college that after graduating you realized you shouldn't have worried about at all?
Okay, I guess I remember I had this weird thought, and not so weird, but I remember the summer program. It's like, damn, there's no Wendy's around the corner. Like, why am I here? It's so, there's like, it's so remote here. I feel like I had this anxiety of that I didn't have all these things that I was used to, and that being in such a, I mean, look around, there's not much around here. I was worried about not building the community that's so easy to build in New York City because everything's so accessible, but New York City. But then you have these people around you that are here with you that you really do find pockets of community, whether it's through OP, through other extracurricular activities. And the other one I want to stress is the major piece. I came in thinking I was pre-med. I know other people are probably pre-med here. And I'm not telling you not to be pre-med. But what I am saying is I came in, I went to the advising session. I was like, oh, it's an open curriculum, but I only get to choose 4 classes because I need to plan the rest of my, I was like, I don't think that aligns with what I want, but let me take the first bio class. Similar to Shaina, it's not for me. But what I did learn is when I chose my major, which was sociology, and similar to your question, I wasn't really thinking about, like, is this gonna get me the job? But it was like, this is what resonates with me. This is kind of the spirit of the school, study what you love. And it all worked out. Like, I make, decent money. We don't have to talk about how much, but I make some money, and I'm really happy with the work that I do. But I'm the anxieties I had of, like, do I double minor? I mean, spoiler, they don't really care at some point. But still take the classes if they're important to you. But I wouldn't overstress about getting those 2 minors. I'd care more about being involved in things that are actually interesting to me. I did student assembly. Because I was like, oh, this is something I'm really interested in. I did Adirondack Adventure not because I love camping. I think it's kind of not fun, but I wanted to try something new, right? So I think it's more about what you get involved in and sort of how you sort of communicate those as transferable skills, like I'm a leader, versus like, oh, I took 5 econ classes, because, I mean, it's really not that, I think, important to have that minor at least. Yeah. Damn, y'all didn't want to hear the pre-med piece, did you?
My anxieties were slightly different, and this is where I get to walk in bravery, right? So, 31 days before I completed Hamilton, I received my HIV diagnosis while being here. So, preparing for the real world shifted a lot for me. Because leading up to that point, you know, the world was my oyster, right? So I'm like, oh, I can go here, I can go here. I'm going to get a job in St. Louis. I might move to LA. But then life hit me in the throat. And I had to get myself together because there are many things at that point in 2011 legally I had to do and had to think about, like, where am I going to get my health care? So for me, it was about adulting and growing up really fast, where my priority is not what my major is. Africana Studies was just a given because for me, I understood the power of intersectionality, and also a place like Hamilton, I got the Emerson Award my sophomore year. So I knew the power, once again, with the assistance of comparative literature, what your gifts can do, what my gifts did for me. At a place like Hamilton, I could read, write, and speak all day. So why not find the opportunities and programs and grants and scholarships that will give me the space to do what I already know how to do, and whatever will happen for me will happen for me. One of the lessons my mother taught me, which is scripture, was in all thy ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. So I would wake up and just on my partner's nerves sometimes, ebb and flow with the water. But I would learn to captain the ship at the same time. So my advice to you is, also, as someone who hires people, no one cares about your GPA and no one cares about you majored in. So unless you're going to a specific program for your specific thing in school, please stop in your GPA and what you majored in on your resume, because I will throw it in the trash. I don't have time for that. Good for you for being a double minor in I don't care. The working world does not care. We just want you to have a degree. But what's unique for this generation is, at least in Massachusetts now, we have removed the education requirement from applications and job descriptions. So there is a movement where you really don't need to worry about what you're majoring in, just get the degree. Because I promise you, unless you're really trying to be a doctor, any career, whatever it is, you are very fortunate to be in the job crafting era. So every opportunity you have, embrace it, because it will open itself up to another opportunity later. Don't stress about the GPA, don't stress about the major. We don't care. Okay, we just need someone to fill in the space. And if you know how to advocate and present yourself well, and we'll get to that later about how a few years ago I had the nerve to interview these Hamilton EOP opportunity students who were not interview ready, and I was annoyed and embarrassed because I know what we went through when I was in the class of 2011 to get a job. So for me to come back and want to interview opportunity students who had the nerve to take my interview and their interviews in their dorm room in their pajamas laying down, not having their resumes ready, your priorities are messed up. No one cares about your GPA or your major. We do care about how you present yourself in the job interview though. So you got 2 years to get that together, class of 2026.
Very real.
Oh, I'll applaud myself.
Anxieties, man.
No.
I had a lot. I think it was just saying, like, am I doing enough? And what Mason shared just now is very real. Like, I think in the job force, what folks are gonna care about is if you're gonna push yourself to do like more in your job. If you are coming to do exactly what the job description says, and if you're the type of person that would like, okay, I'm gonna come right at 9 and I'm gonna leave right at 4:59. That's great. You know, I don't knock anyone for that. I understand the importance of work-life balance, but for me, it was always a question like, am I doing enough? Why? Because I'm a person that likes to excel. I like to be excellent any position that I'm in. So to just piggyback on what Mason said, yes, your major doesn't necessarily matter in the workforce. I think it's really how you present yourself, but also what you're gonna do at your job. Because you can present yourself very well in the job interview, and then you get the job, and you're like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna lay back. I'm gonna coast, right? But employers do look at that, and I want to say, as a manager now, we can tell when people are coasting, and I try to give people opportunities, right, to grow and to excel. But if I see someone that is like, I have to leave right at this time because I can't go to an event with you because I have to do something else. I'm like, okay. So we'll take a step back. So it's a little bit of give and take. I know it's not answering your question, but I do feel the need to build off of Mason's point because it is important for the job market.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your honest response. So kind of sort of to like piggyback off of that, my next question will be, what tips can you give us on networking, resume building, interviewing, or any other important information that has to do with the workforce?
Know the difference between, and we talked about this, there's a huge difference between the folks you meet here who will be your friends, because I just showed Ms. Breland pictures of people I was HEOP 06, by the way, and 2 weeks ago I was with some of my people in HEOP in Chicago, and 2 of them are still my best, well, about 4 of them are still my best friends in life to this day. Know who your friends are, know who your associates and peers are, and know who your colleagues are, and present yourself accordingly. Every opportunity and every day you're here, you're interviewing, you're being seen by someone. Literally just today, or 2 days ago, I got a call from an organization I did a training for in 2019. And I left such an impression they want to bring me back in 2023. I don't know who these people were. Thank you for participating whatever I did 5 years ago. But I did it 5 years ago and it left such an impact. So what are you doing that is solution-based, intentional, and impactful in ways that will serve you tomorrow? A lot of us think that you get out of college and get a job. Sorry, at college you learn the difference between building a garden and sustaining a forest. So which do you want? Do you want something seasonal or something permanent? Because each requires a different level of care from you. But still, in every interview, walking around campus in your pajamas ain't gonna help you. Saying no one is doing anything or you feel isolated isn't gonna help you. The world is not just going to give you opportunities, unfortunately. So while you are here, continue to develop and accept who you are and accept why you chose to come here and recognize that this place can catapult you places if you allow yourself to catapult. I know it gets hard, it gets dark and gloomy. This place can do a lot of stuff to you, but I'm 35 and look at this skin, get into it. I learned while at Hamilton, this weather does enough to stress me out. So I need to moisturize. So when I'm on Zoom interviewing, you would think, I mean the lighting in here, I hope for this YouTube channel, y'all put a cinnamon filter on my skin. But these are the things you should be focused on here. How are you leaving the room? How do you enter the room? Because every class you go to is an interview. Every time you go to the dining hall and they swipe you in, or the custodians clean up after you after the long weekends, you are being interviewed and looked at. So how do you want to be remembered here? Because it sets the stage for who gives you what later.
Okay. So I, at my old job, so when I started at the Department of Small Business Services, I went through a time where I was sort of entry level for about 4 or 5 months. And then the pandemic hit. The pandemic shifted the job market so much. And it also shifted how the organization I was in, the team I was in, was structured. So I started off as a press associate. I reported to a press secretary. The press secretary reported to the director of communications. did not know anything about what communications is. I marketed myself during the interview, but when I got the job, I was like, I'm gonna learn as much as I can. And I would Google things. I would be like, how to write a press release. I wanted to learn. I was facing a little bit of imposter syndrome because I'm like, am I good enough to be in this job position? Like, I did not study communications in college. I studied anthropology, but whatever. I'm gonna make it through. So the pandemic hit in March of 2020. We went all remote. And then a couple months later, probably like 3 or 4 months later, my boss was like, hey girl, I am leaving. I got another job opportunity. And I was like, what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna report to? Does that mean I'm taking over your responsibilities? So she sort of coached me through that in her last 2 weeks that she was at the job position. She left, and then the director of communications got COVID. And she was out for 4 months. So I went from being in a team of, it was a team of 7, but there were people that were doing other comm stuff like social media, graphic design, right? So I went from a team of 2 people that could support me and teach me the ropes, right? And teach me how to navigate talking to journalists, writing an op-ed, writing a quote for my boss, to now just me. And executive staff were looking at me to sort of do the work of a press secretary and a director of communications. So that was a very hard moment for me, and I was just like, okay, I'm either going to, it's a sink or swim type of moment, and I was like, I'm gonna swim. I'm gonna try my best to do all of that. So it was trial by fire, and I learned a lot from a communications profession during that time. Which allowed me, so I could have been like, you know what, I have a job description of a press associate, and that's what I'm getting paid for, and that's what I'm gonna stick to. I could have told my bosses that, but I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna lean into it, and even if I don't know how to do something, I'll ask questions or I'll figure it out. Those months that I was there, because I was at that job for 2 years, so for the year and I think it was 2 months, I was doing the job of a press secretary and also learning how to do the job of a director of communications with the salary of a press associate. And I kept folders.
Girl.
This is where I'm going with my story here. I kept folders because my previous boss was coaching me through this time. She was like, there's gonna come a time where you get to sit down with your bosses and you get to tell them, this is all of the work I've been doing outside of my job description, and you have a folder ready. You have receipts. I'm presenting this to you because I want to raise. That was a great learning experience for me because it teach me, one, how to be super, super organized in the job I currently have now, too. Everything that I do outside of my job description, even if it's like copies of emails or projects or stuff I'm writing, I put it in a separate folder and I keep those folders and I keep it on my desktop and I'm collecting that. Because it teaches you, one, how to advocate for yourself when you do want a pay raise, right? And 2, also, it shows you the amount of work that you're doing. So I think that's the biggest tip that my mentor could have given to me, just keeping track of everything that you're doing, and also using that to your advantage when you are asking for like a pay raise, for a salary raise. Long story short, they did not want to give me a salary raise after doing all of that work, which happens, right? It happens. It's very real. And there's a lot of layers to it because I'm a woman of color. I was told that I was too young to be a press secretary. At that time, I was 23 years old. So they're like, oh, you just graduated college. Like, you need some more years before you get to the position. So I took that experience. I took that no, and I applied to the job I'm currently in now at the mayor's office. And I started off as a press secretary at that job. So I got that job. And months after I got that job, I think it was like 5 months, we got hit with the asylum seeker humanitarian crisis, which is really really big in New York City, and the office I'm in is currently one of the few offices that are leading on New York City's response. So again, I took that advice from my mentor of keeping track of everything that I was doing during those months of, and it's still an ongoing crisis, right? But during those initial months of the asylum seeker humanitarian crisis, and again, I had a conversation with my boss, and I was like, I think I'm ready to be director of communications. This is all of the work that I've been doing. And that was a very different conversation. My boss was like, I think you're ready to. So I was able to get a promotion then, thank you. And then now I think it was a year and a half later, again, moral of the story is when employers see your potential, they'll continue to add stuff to your plate. And my employer continued to add bigger projects to my plate, but also take out like smaller projects. They're like, well, this is more for a junior level staff member, so you can hand it off to XYZ person. Which is very real, and I'm grateful for that opportunity for bosses to see that potential, but you also have to take that and make sure like you're not getting taken advantage of, and you are empowered enough to have those conversations to be like, thank you for giving me these opportunities, this is what I've been able to do with the opportunity that you've given me, and really advocate for yourself for a title change, a pay raise, all of that stuff. So now I had that conversation again with my boss to add strategic advisor, right? Because now I'm not just doing communications work, I'm doing other policy initiatives, which is really interesting. And again, he's like, yeah, you can add strategic advisor and get a pay raise there. But yeah.
So, are you all first, second year? Any juniors, seniors? Okay. I'll give you a couple quick tips. So, I'd say if you're not involved in anything, you probably should be involved in something. I think it really is a time to build something to put on your resume. It doesn't need to be the president of something, but if you're the secretary, even if you're a member, this is just something to add to your resume, especially if you want to say like, I'm interested in press secretary. What have you demonstrated, even if it's on a small level, that you can write on your resume? Getting to the resume now, I think sometimes when people ask me to read their resumes, something I've learned is that your bullet points kind of need to be a little specific, and the word quantifiable comes up sometimes. So how have you demonstrated your impact? I know it's all kind of jargon, but really, what have you done and what's been the outcome? Did you start this club and create this community that didn't exist before? Did you like reach out to a bunch of people? Now the club has 100 members instead of 50. I think that's more actionable than saying like, I led meetings. You see, so it's the difference between being a little more general versus specific. In terms of networking, I think when reaching out to people, it's always best to give a little time frame of, do you have 15 to 20 minutes versus like, do you have time to talk? Sometimes people are busy getting a lot of these emails. If you say you have time to talk, I'm like, how much time do you really need here, to be frank? So I think if you're also coming with something, and when you're coming into those meetings, just being a little bit specific of like, you're not just looking for a talk, but you at least have a list of questions of like, hey, I'm interested in this thing, but I don't know much about it. Can you talk to me more about that? Or I saw that you went to this thing, and I'm wondering how you got there. Versus like, can you tell me more about UX research? That's something you could probably Google, and I don't need to tell you about it. But if you ask more about, hey, I see you work at Lab, and you do a lot of studies on this, I'm interested in learning about the kinds of studies you've done with this. It's really about getting a little bit more specific with your ask, because if you're asking very general questions, I feel that it's like, you should probably just go to Google for that, not to be rude, but just to be straightforward. And that's my other tip. And yeah, I'd say don't get discouraged from just reaching out to like people. Sometimes they're not gonna respond. I'll be honest, I'm sometimes not the best responder. But if you're persistent, or if you just like I'm not saying if someone's not responding to you after the third time, like, okay, maybe try someone else, but like if you're really interested in talking to someone and they haven't gotten back to you, just kind of send the message again, it doesn't hurt. So yeah, those are my quick tips for just networking, interviewing.
Yeah, okay, so thank you so much. Those are all the questions that I have for you. I would like to now open the floor to anyone that has any specific questions to any of the alums. Now is the best time to do it. Yes?
Well, not for my sister, but for the other two people, because I already know what she does. But how do you handle your job and your outside life? Because I know when you're in college, well, I can't say this because I'm not in college, but I know from what I hear is that when you're in college, it's hard to like balance your social life, your work life, your school life. So I want to know for people that already graduated and are already adults. How do you guys are adults too, but how do you guys manage? Yeah, how do you guys manage your time?
Girl, I'm delusional. Just because I'm on the panel as an alum doesn't mean I have my life together.
Yes.
At all. It is something I have to work on intentionally every day.
Or like, what are some like goals, or like what are things that help you with that? Like as an adult. Like,
As an adult, what helps me act like I have it balanced? But that's actually a piece of it. That's a part of the answer, right? So in adulthood, I've learned I don't do math, right? Hate math. Thank you, summer of '06, for making me take a math class. But yeah, so the triangle has 3 sides. And I operate with these 3 points at my triangle at all times. So it will either be a right triangle, an acute or an abuse. I'll choose not abuse. I'll choose and do that. So these 3 sides of my triangle for life are audacity, tenacity, and humility. I have to be audacious enough to keep going and have the tenacity to sustain myself, but the humility to always come back to no matter what. I am both irreplaceable and replaceable. Like, what I bring to work, no one can ever bring to anything I touch. But that doesn't mean someone can't do it. So knowing that because in the work world, I have a business growing, so I can't fire me. But at any given moment, I can be replaced, and I'm okay with that. That's the balance that I want us all to remember, is that triangle, to be tenacious, audacious, and humble. That's how I'm learning to balance it all, is recognizing what type of triangle, what side is more greater than the other. Am I being more audacious in this season, or am I being in my era of humility? That's how I'm getting by in life.
I like that.
Damn, do I have a triangle? My triangle, work, friends, gym. I think when we all went, I say we all, my job's mostly remote, so I think sometimes it's hard to turn off because I work from where I also sleep. So it's kind of like and some of you probably experienced this when you're in school where you're just going to class and also maybe sleeping in the same room. I think that shifted my work-life balance in a way where I was like, oh, I'm kind of just on my laptop doing work and I'm also still in the same place. But I find that I just have to set boundaries at work. Like I know what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. So I'm not willing to work. There are days where I'll work longer than I just because I have to get the work done. But there are definitely days where I'm like, I planned this thing with my friend, and they trust that the work's going to be done. So if it's 6:30 and I've made plans, then that's that for me. So I think it really is setting boundaries, healthy boundaries with the people you work with. Also understanding that some days you're going to have to work a little longer, but I think that comes with the job that you choose. For example, some people are consultants, and I think it's well known that there's not a good work-life balance there. But for me, I think it comes in the job that you also choose. That this is what I'm willing to sacrifice and also give, vice versa.
If I may, sorry. One other thing. No is a complete sentence. Not no because, no, that, no. See how powerful in that piece I am? No.
That's the audacity.
That's the audacity, yes. Learn to say no. Yeah. That was my last one.
Any other questions or any other follow-up questions?
What do you think? Oh,
Brief.
yeah. What do you think the most important thing to do? What's the most important thing for you to do in an interview? Like when you're introducing yourself, like, cause they okay, mind you, you've already sent them your resume and your cover letter, and at best you've probably written down why you want to be there, cause everybody asks you the same things over and over again. So it's like, what is like special like that you say that they don't know already or something? I don't know.
I guess if I could answer, since I guess I interview people in a different context, not like a work interview, but I spend my days interviewing people about how they use things. I think with interviews, you really want to come in with a story that's like, you want to get to the the pith of the point of your story. Of if I asked you, tell me about a time you did this. If you're telling me the story for 5 minutes, then I kind of lost like what it is. And I think if you can tell me, here is the challenge, here's how I surpassed it, and here's how it got better, like to the point, that sticks out. If you're kind of like, and then this happened, and that happened, and now we've got 5 minutes, and then I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, is this person done yet? So I think that's at least what I think is important when you go into an interview. Like kind of do your homework about the company and the values and what the job description is and the typical job interview questions. But also like get to the point, because they're interviewing a lot of people for this position, and you want to, obviously not everyone's going to have the most unique story. Everyone has similar situations at work, but if you can tell it in a succinct, powerful way, I think that goes a long way.
I'm very blessed, right, where I haven't had to interview for a job maybe about like 5 or 6 years because people seek me out. So I was at the point where, and I would present my whole self. That means what you see me wearing today, granted it's leather, some of it may be pleather, I don't remember. I'll check the tag after. Is it pleather? That is not the point. The point is I would come to my interviews as my full self because there would be no confusion. Hiab taught me the importance of managing my full self. One thing I learned is there are, like I said, you are both replaceable and irreplaceable. So what are you going to bring here as a person that I can't get from anywhere else? And also, what we forget when we're going to interviews for jobs, you should be interviewing the job. Like, tell me why I should work here. That's why I go to my interviews, where I'm like, I understand that I might need a job. And I'm not saying go to all of your interviews like, I made it. I didn't wake up like this today. It took years of me getting into formation. But when I was finally in line, and I had my alligator tears all where I needed them to be, I showed up like this, and I would ask anyone who wanted something from me, job related, why I should align myself with you. That's what makes candidates different for me when I'm interviewing. Interview me. You should always have at least 3 questions when you go to a job interview. Not the basic, what are you looking for? No one cares. We know you read it in the job post. Why is this vacancy open? What is this agency's 5-year plan? What is the contingent, or like, is this grant funded? Is this job, does it have an expiration date? Why did the last person not fulfill this job? You want to make sure that you are just as thorough with them as they are with you, because it's something you're going to align yourself with. Similarly to Hamilton, at some point you made your peace that you are in the woods. There's not anything here. I'm from down the street. There's a lot to do here, like Walmart, Target, the park, Bible study. There are many things you can do here. I started a dance team because I didn't make heat. So I don't believe one of those, oh, there's nothing to do here, no one's, if it's not there, you are blessed to craft it. You are the place, a liberal arts institution. If you aren't liberally using your brain, that's your fault. Yeah.
If I could just add, definitely do your research on the about the position that you're applying for and the company that you are working for. I have done many interviews where I ask, like, how do you know about us? Have you seen our website? What do you think you can improve about our website or our social media? Simply because I'm looking for communications positions, people that are applying for communication positions, and they're like, so like do your research, be on time, and if not on time, definitely 20 minutes beforehand, plan your day around that interview, and present yourself appropriately. I have also done a lot of Zoom interviews where people are on their bed. You can tell they've only been dressed from like just the top portion, and we pick up on that. So
And it's really important to do research, right? So for example, I had the opportunity to work with the city of Somerville and the city of Boston, establishing their Department of Racial and Social Justice. In my interview, I asked the city of Boston what their definition of equity was. They didn't have one. So why would I then choose to work with a place that can't provide a definition for the work they want me to do? I'm setting myself up. My partner can attest that I have a habit of setting myself up for failure. I'm slightly delusional when it comes to how I used to work. But now, because of the years of training and being in the job force, of being interviewed and now being blessed to interview people, I know what I'm looking for. I can tell within the first 5 seconds if I want to talk to you. I don't need 5 minutes. I can ask you one question. If you start with we're done. If you have to think about what brought you here today, we're done. So know who you are, and also have no problem asking for what you need. Let me take a minute to process this question. I take that over and you have me sitting here in silence, thinking about if I want a shrimp tempura roll or a dragon roll from JP Sushi. Because I can't stand, because there are some jobs where I'm obligated to go through a series of questions for equity purposes, and I'm annoyed that I can't end these conversations. So it's pivotal that you bring yourself to these interviews. It is essential that you ask your interviewer questions. It's a date. Like, this is a date for your paycheck. It's a date for your sweat equity. It's a date for what sets you up next in life. So if you come in here expecting things but not accepting other things, or if it's one way, good for you. You will burn yourself out and annoy me, because then I have to find someone else to replace you, and then I have to do your job, and I get annoyed. And then I have to call Miss Davis to find someone from Hamilton, because that's what we do. That's what I did. I needed help. I called the Opportunities Office 2 years ago, because I needed translators for a public meeting in Somerville, because that's what I wanted to do. And I interviewed some of your classmates, and I was taken aback at how unprepared your cohorts were. I was like, this was not the YEP of 2006. I don't know who y'all are, but y'all need to get it together. I recognize that you had the pandemic and you came here. The last time you saw someone, you were probably like, 12, and you went to college, so you missed some developmental stuff. I empathize, and I don't care. You want my money. I need you to do something. Or I need something done, and you can potentially provide that for me. Convince me, engage me, make me feel loved for those 15 minutes or 45. That's it. Oh, she just stood up. I just wanted to wait because I'm awkward.
Thank you.
We're technically, all of y'all should have came here with a question. This is opportunity programs. I am gagging at how silent this room is. I drove 4.5 hours after giving an event at Brandeis last. Thank you. You should all have a question. These are opportunities for you to learn to be better. Take advantage of them. There are no wrong questions here. Oh, 1, 2.
What was one of,
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
You number 3, Miss Breland.
You number 3, Miss Breland.
Huh?
You number 3.
I'm number 3?
Yeah.
Sorry, you have to.
But I'm with you.
If somebody up here.
Carlos.
Yeah.
So, since y'all are all opportunity program students or alum, in terms of like how important do you think OP was for you during college, and how do you think it formed you as a person, as who you are today, if it did?
Not if. I just told you that like 4 of my best friends in life I met the summer of 2006. My mom knows who they are. But what I want to express and highlight, this is an opportunity for you to craft opportunities. It is not up to HEOP to hold your hand and tell you this is how the world works. No one has time for that. And in fact, I'm of the experience where we want to do more for you, but so many of you are so stuck in your feelings and woe is me, and there's nothing to do here, and there's no community, and it's cold, and it's dark, and there's no Wendy's down the street.
Oh,
that
come
you for-
on.
I'm offended because I live here.
There's
I
no
can-
Wendy's down the
There
street.
is no Wendy's down the street, but you know what is down the street?
Subway?
Walmart. Well, listen, because I had a many nights. No. I'm telling you, some of my best nights was me and my crew would go to Walmart at like 2, 3 in the morning.
Walmart?
But see how we create the intent and the principle behind it is we made it happen. You chose to stay here. You got here the summer, whatever you got here that summer, you know, it was a little delusional because you were trapped in a real world house. 17 strangers picked together to have their lives filmed and taped. I totally understand. But then by the end of your first semester, you get a sense of what you chose to sign up for. So stop complaining and craft the opportunity programs has given you the opportunity to do. They're not going to tell you these are the opportunities. No, you've been afforded to craft it. You don't see it. I didn't make heed. I made my own dance team. I could have stalked and be like, there's no community for me. No, I'll make my own. I'm a trendsetter. I don't follow trends.
Well, no Wendy's, okay. I'm kind of salty. I think one part is obviously the HEOP classmates, the OP classmates that you come in with. That's an immediate community. But I would say really form those connections with the staff. I think Mrs. Breland, Miss Davis, I really got to know them. Miss Breland wrote my recommendation for the Watson. I mean, I didn't even have my project fully fleshed out, but I trusted that she knew me enough that she could, craft a recommendation that really spoke to my ability to pursue this opportunity. So I think it really is going into those meetings, knowing that they're really here to support you, that they do love you, that they have put so much time and effort into supporting you over your 4 years. So just remind yourselves of that. So yeah, I'm still, you don't know, you might have met Marquise last fall. He's one of my best friends. We actually met on a trip to Destiny USA. I don't know if you still go to that mall. Yeah, we met. We actually met in the
Not last summer.
we met in like the elevator of the mall and have been best friends since. He also did a Watson. He also lives like a couple train stops away from me. We've been like, I think it's been 10 years at this point. And I've talked to him about, the jobs that I've wanted to pursue and the opportunities post-college, and he's read a lot of the essays that I've written over the years. And so the opportunity programs have done so much more, obviously got me into Hamilton, but there's definitely a community that you can rely on. And obviously they brought me back here because they think I have some sort of good advice to give.
Thank you. Let's give them a
I also do
do want to thank these three for coming back to Hamilton, because I think we all learn a lot from alums who have come through the program, have learned so much, and then have real life experience that they can, relate it to and then bring back to all of us to hear. Every time alums come back, Ms. Reel and I learned something new, which is really kind of interesting. But, we really appreciate your time, and we do love you, and we love you continuously. So even, after you leave Hamilton, you're always an OP student, family. So we do have some gifts for you to remember OP. And thank you so much for coming.
Ooh, that was good. You sure? Like,